What are some of the scariest crimes people will commit? Such as this Las Vegas woman who decided to go after a random guy for no reason. Or this TikTok quote-unquote dentist who had no clue how to do any dental work. Or what about this unhinged lady who pulled up on her neighbor without any warning? Let's find out, starting with number 6, no real reason. Kayla Ellery, a 27-year-old woman from Las Vegas, was arrested and charged with multiple felonies after a random senseless act at an apartment complex. Ellery, who had been recently released on parole for arson, discharged a firearm at Raul Cardoza, a carpet cleaner who was on the job, ending his life while he was just sitting in his van. The incident appears to be completely unprovoked, and Cardoza had no prior interaction with Ellery. Witnesses at the scene described Ellery as acting erratically, checking car doors, and moving around an apartment complex before approaching the van where Cardoza and his brother were taking a break. Ellery pulled out a firearm and discharged the weapon at Cardoza without warning, then fled the scene. Police apprehended her shortly after, and she was found with the weapon and a bag with an illegal substance. Ellery's criminal history is extensive. She had served time for arson after attempting to set fire to a vehicle back in 2022. Her other charges included burglary, domestic battery, and coercion. When arrested for the arson case, she initially provided false information, claiming to be a 52-year-old man before revealing her true identity. Ellery had previously been sentenced to 14 to 36 years in prison, but somehow got paroled. Ellery has since been indicted on charges related to the passing of Cardoza. Ellery's defense is expected to focus on some pretty obvious mental health issues, as her legal team is preparing for psychiatric evaluations. Reports suggest that Ellery has claimed memory gaps, particularly around the time of the incident, which her defense may use to argue for diminished responsibility. Additionally, there has been controversy surrounding her previous parole, with many in the community questioning how someone with her criminal history was released on parole months before this incident. Ellery has also faced further legal trouble while in custody, including being charged after an altercation with another inmate. Authorities are still investigating the exact motive behind the shooting, but it doesn't really sound like there is one. It's scary to think of all the little variables that could have prevented this sort of outcome. Maybe Cardoza and his brother decided to work through their break that day. Or maybe instead of sitting in their van, they found a bench in a different area of the complex. Or maybe they decided to go pick up lunch. This sort of crime could literally have been any one of us just living our lives. It makes you wonder how many times that annoying red light you hit when you were late for something somehow, unknowingly, ended up saving your life. Number 5. Dental disasters. Monica Davis, an unlicensed dentist from Illinois, was arrested for running a fraudulent veneer and braces business that left many customers with severe dental issues. Operating under the name The Veneer Experts, she used TikTok to promote her services, convincing people she was improving smiles. Davis, however, didn't have the qualifications to practice dentistry, which apparently is something you should have if you're going to be a dentist. This, of course, led to a lot of patients leaving with severe dental issues. Unsurprisingly, many patients complained about the quality of Bailey's services, and one credited dentist, Dr. Laura Zalay, expressed concerns about the lasting damage Davis caused. She said that without proper care, many of Davis's patients could lose their teeth entirely. One victim, Monica Bailey, brought her daughter to Davis for braces. After their first appointment, Bailey wasn't able to ever schedule a follow-up, as Davis had abruptly disconnected her contact numbers. Naturally, that freaked Bailey out, so she did a little online search and found that Davis had a mugshot that was connected to some illegal dental practices. Another customer, Ralph Jones, paid over $1,200 for a set of veneers, which should have been a huge red flag, since that's about the normal price range per tooth. So he got them put in, only to have them quickly decay and fall out. Authorities eventually discovered that Davis had been operating in both Illinois and Nevada without a license. Legal experts explained that practicing dentistry without certification in these states is a serious crime, typically handled with cease and desist letters followed by court action. Davis posted bail in Nevada after being arrested, but continued her fraudulent operations in Illinois. There, she was charged again for providing illegal dental services, including fake braces and poorly applied veneers that left clients with dental damage, such as chipped teeth. Investigations have been ongoing, and the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation is considering imposing fines on Davis for each violation, potentially amounting to $10,000 per offense. This is pretty scary because we all just kind of assume that if someone has DDS on their office sign and a paper on the wall in their office that looks like a diploma, that they're legit, right? These days, it seems like it's becoming more and more necessary to check up on any professional you're going to trust with anything valuable to you. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Number 4, putting knowledge to use. Dr. Connor Bowman, a former Mayo Clinic doctor who worked in toxicology, has been indicted by a Minnesota grand jury for the passing of his wife, Betty Bowman. Betty, a pharmacist at the same hospital, was allegedly given toxic substances by her husband after their open relationship fell apart. Initially charged with a certain second-degree crime, Bowman now faces an upgraded charge of the first-degree version, which carries a possible life sentence without parole if convicted. Here's an interesting fact. Botox is actually the most toxic naturally occurring substance in nature. Anyway, investigators revealed that the couple's marriage had deteriorated due to infidelity and other issues, with Betty ultimately threatening divorce. Betty became ill after drinking a smoothie mixed with alcohol, which she believed had caused her sudden sickness. She was admitted to the Mayo Clinic St. Mary's Hospital, where her condition worsened rapidly, leading to her passing just days later. Bowman, who was basically the guy you'd call at poison control if you needed help, was accused of attempting to have his wife's body cremated quickly and pressured officials not to perform an autopsy. However, law enforcement launched an extensive investigation that uncovered some disturbing details. Authorities discovered that Bowman had researched toxic doses of a medicine used to treat gout, which she didn't have, which was later found in Betty's system. Bowman allegedly calculated a toxic dose based on his wife's weight, leading to her passing due to organ failure. Beyond his suspicious actions surrounding Betty's passing, Bowman's behavior in the aftermath also raised red flags. Friends described him as emotionless and indifferent, going out for drinks shortly after his wife passed away. And we get that everyone deals with grief differently, but Bowman's vacant demeanor and lack of any sort of grief from such an unexpected tragedy struck everyone who saw it as suspicious. The indictment revealed that Bowman had been deeply in debt, and it was discovered that he had intended to claim a $500,000 life insurance policy on Betty's passing. In his attempts to cover his tracks, Bowman even searched online for ways to hide information from law enforcement, and if browser histories could be used in court, which sounds like a really stupid thing to do for someone so smart. Despite Bowman's efforts to conceal his actions, the medical examiner ruled Betty's passing as intentional due to the toxic levels of the medicine found in her system. As of the release of this video, Bowman remains in custody with bail set at $2 million, awaiting his next court date. Number 3, the passenger pickpocketing scheme. William Joseph Timothy, a former U.S. Customs and Border Protection officer stationed at Naples Airport, admitted to stealing more than $18,000 from international passengers over a series of thefts. Timothy, aged 43, committed 17 separate incidents of theft between May of 2023 and January of 2024. The investigation, led by the CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility, revealed that Timothy discreetly stole cash during border examinations and currency verifications. One particular theft involved the passenger arriving from the Bahamas. Here's an interesting statistic. Between 2004 and 2021, over 300 CBP officers and agents were arrested or disciplined for corruption-related activities, including bribery, smuggling, and theft. While conducting a currency check, Timothy helped himself to $2,200 from the travelers' money without their knowledge, because he apparently thought that checking something meant just taking it. Over time, this pattern of behavior led to a total of $18,700 being stolen. Timothy has since agreed to repay all the stolen funds to the victims and resigned from his position at the CBP as part of his plea agreement. His attorney said that Timothy regrets his actions and has taken full responsibility, because no one is more remorseful of their actions than when they're in court, right? Though the exact date for sentencing hasn't been set, Timothy faces up to 10 years in federal prison. This is scary because you have to go through customs to get back into your country. It's not like you can avoid it to protect yourself from someone going through your stuff. This sort of thing happens in the TSA as well, and it's always anxiety-inducing when you can't see your bag because some dude has decided to go through it. Number 2. Retirement savings vanished. As reported by Haley Sadler of the New York Times, Barry Heitlin, a 76-year-old retired lawyer living in Arlington, Virginia, fell victim to a complex online scam, losing almost his entire retirement savings. The criminals behind the scheme targeted him with precision, preying on his trust and convincing him he was helping federal investigators catch thieves who were after his money. Over the span of 3 months, Barry was manipulated by scammers into withdrawing around $740,000 from his accounts, thinking he was safeguarding his retirement funds as part of a federal investigation. It all began one day when Barry was having trouble accessing his 401k. He didn't really think much of it since we all get our accounts messed up now and then, and we typically blame ourselves. But days later, when he was finally about to log in, a screen popped up telling him to call his account provider's fraud department. That call connected him with a man named Charles Hunt, who claimed to be a fraud investigator for the company. He explained that Barry's accounts were being targeted and asked if he was willing to help safeguard his money. Hunt made it seem like Barry would be aiding a government operation, setting the stage for a scam so elaborate that it felt like a scene from a thriller movie. Soon after, Barry was introduced to a second individual who called himself Hayden Smith. This person claimed to work for a bank where Barry had his IRA and other savings. Smith, using scare tactics, told Barry that his accounts were linked to illegal purchases made in China, creating an atmosphere of fear and urgency. As if to solidify the ruse, a third individual, posing as an IRS agent named Finn Whitrock, entered the picture. He explained that Barry's retirement savings were at risk, but assured him they could transfer the funds into a federal government locker for safekeeping. Barry, wanting to protect his money and believing he was part of a legitimate operation, began making large withdrawals from his retirement accounts. He transferred the money through Bitcoin, ATMs, and wire transfers, thinking it was all going to a secure federal account. Throughout the process, the scammers instructed Barry not to tell anyone, not even his family, making it feel like less of a fraud and more like a Bourne movie. As the scam unfolded, Barry withdrew $113,000 from his checking and savings accounts. But the real blow came when the scammers targeted his IRA, containing more than $830,000. Barry's longtime financial advisor became suspicious when Barry explained he was buying a property in Canada for his children, an excuse the scammers had coached him to use. When that lie didn't hold, Barry tried another, claiming he needed the money to buy gold, which eventually led the bank to ask even more questions. At this point, the scammers began planting seeds of doubt in Barry's mind about his financial advisor. They suggested that his advisor might have leaked his personal information, causing Barry to press harder for access to his money. With no success at his bank, Barry rolled his IRA over to a different institution, following the scammer's instructions. In less than 2 weeks, he drained his account. Barry's next move involved purchasing gold. Over time, he made 3 separate purchases, totaling around $416,000 of gold ingots and coins. Following each purchase, he would hand over the gold in brown paper bags to drivers who arrived at his apartment building, truly believing that this was part of his cooperation with the investigation. The complex scheme finally unraveled when a detective from New Jersey contacted Barry, explaining to him that his name had been found on a receipt for a gold purchase linked to a scam. Realizing what had happened, Barry was completely devastated. His life savings had been stolen, and naturally, the emotional toll was crippling. The sad thing is, Barry's troubles didn't end with the scam. Since the money had been withdrawn from tax-advantaged accounts, Barry now faced a $285,000 tax bill for the previous year. To the government, it appeared as if Barry had enjoyed an extravagant lifestyle. Though his lawyer is working on securing a tax ruling and some legislation might help him regain part of what was lost, the road to recovery is long and uncertain. Barry's story is just one of many in a growing wave of cybercrime targeting older Americans. People over 60 lost more than $3.4 billion to scams in 2023 alone, with criminals using increasingly sophisticated methods to drain retirement savings. These schemes are difficult to trace, with the stolen funds often laundered through crypto or sent to overseas accounts, making recovery nearly impossible. Now, Barry lives with the lasting effects of the scam. His once comfortable retirement has been shattered, and while he reflects on the ordeal, he knows he can't dwell on it too much. Thanks to the support of his family, he's trying to move forward, even though the impact of the scam will stay with him for a long time. The scam is scary because while it may not happen to most of you, the types of victims being targeted, specifically those who are retirement aged, are susceptible. Barry was a former lawyer who seemed to have his wits about him. Yeah, being a lawyer doesn't automatically mean someone is smart, but it kind of usually means they're smart, right? However, don't think there aren't any elderly folks with tricks up their sleeve. Like this grandma, for example. She was caught back in 2010 for dealing out of her home. As always, please warn your loved ones of scams like this. Remind them to be skeptical of unsolicited contacts. Never use the numbers provided in unexpected pop-ups. Never give remote access to any of your accounts. And discuss any situation with a family member or friend they trust. Number 1. A minor dispute. A Las Vegas pastor, Nick Davey, tragically lost his life during a confrontation outside his home. The horrifying incident occurred as his family, including his 2 children, watched from nearby. The conflict allegedly involved another resident in their gated community, Joe Junio, who had been in a dispute with the family for weeks over complaints Davey had made to their homeowners association. So, what were these complaints that led to someone losing their life? The trouble began when Davey apparently reported Junio to the HOA for keeping chickens and dogs at her property, which apparently wasn't allowed. On the night of the incident, as the Davey family was preparing to leave their home, Junio happened to drive past Davey and his family. She then parked her car and rolled down the window, which led to the verbal exchange between the two, with Davey apparently asking her what her problem was with them before stepping toward her vehicle. At that point, Junio opened her car door and discharged her firearm, hitting him in the stomach. She then turned the firearm on Davey's wife, Sarah, injuring her as well. The whole time, the Davey children, aged 12 and 15, recorded the tragic incident from their car. Davey was taken to a local hospital where he later passed away from his injuries. Sarah survived the incident and has since filed a lawsuit. The lawsuit claimed that the HOA was aware of the increasing threats from Junio but failed to take action. Junio, who worked in real estate, was arrested at the scene and charged with multiple serious offenses. As of the release of this video, she's being held on $300,000 bail. The family has since moved out of their home due to the traumatic events. It's scary that this whole incident happened because of HOA complaints, isn't it? HOAs are annoying, but they're there for the benefit of everyone in the community. It's sad that because of chickens and dogs, everyone involved had their lives forever changed. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what superpower you would rather have. Be able to control the weather, or be able to breathe underwater.